Welcome to First Alarm Family First. I'm Jen Herrera alongside Carolyn Acosta as always. This is episode 38, and we are so glad that everybody's joining us.
Yes, today we are very happy to have Gina Hudson, a retired firefighter paramedic with 22 years of service for the Miramar Fire Rescue. Throughout her career, Gina was a leader in her community outreach, youth mentorship, department support efforts. When her husband, Captain Richard Hudson, was diagnosed with leukemia, Gina turned her pain into purpose, becoming a passionate voice for cancer prevention, wellness, and safety for the fire service. Hi, Gina. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Can you take us back? What made you become a firefighter in the first place?
Actually, funny story. I didn't grow up wanting to be a firefighter. I grew up in a neighborhood with lots of kids in Hollywood, and Hollywood Fire Rescue started an Explorer program. And all the kids on our street decided we were all going to join at the same time. And it was more of, I don't know if we wanted to, if our parents made us just to get us out of trouble. So we all joined up to this program. We met once a week, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And my cousin was part of it. My brother was part of it. All the friends in the neighborhood were part of it. And we all actually kind of went into the fire service in our own ways. So that was the start. I guess 16 is when I got into it. Knew that's what I wanted to do. Right out of high school, enrolled into EMT, right into fire school, and right into paramedic. I was on the job by 20 years old.
Hearing you talk about that journey, you can see it in your face, how excited you were at the time when you think about it. And I know you personally, so I know how proud you are as well of being part of the firefighter family. With that said, Gina, being a first responder does come with a lot. We have to address what happened less than 24 hours ago. We know that 2 firefighters were killed in Idaho. While the specifics of exactly what happened have not come out, we do know that 2 firefighters for sure did lose their life. One other, I believe, was critically injured or seriously injured at last check. Based on initial reports, it does sound like this was intentional, meaning somebody may have started a brush fire in order to lure these Idaho firefighters to that scene and then sadly take their lives. And it appears that they were trying to take more than just the lives that they did take. As a firefighter, as someone who lights up when you talk about why you got into this profession and your service, when you see headlines like that, it has to break your heart.
It does. We already face so many challenges, as you are all well aware, with the mental health, cancer, things that we have to battle on the job itself. And now we have to worry about outside entities trying to harm us. I mean, we sacrifice and we're giving our lives every day when we walk in the station. And now just an added worry that we have to always be on guard for. It's terrible, sad to hear.
Morale-wise, it has to have a huge impact.
It does. Why? Why would somebody want to do that? The understanding and trying to get into that mind, obviously we know that'll never happen, but it just, I signed up to help complete strangers. Why would a complete stranger want to harm me or my brothers and sisters? It just makes zero sense to me.
Yeah, it's disturbing to say the least. So Gina, you wore a lot of hats: firefighter, paramedic, outreach, public info, mentoring. Which part did you love the most?
I loved being on the trucks, doing the job, making a difference. That's what everybody says. Oh, I want to make a difference. How often you make a difference? Probably is not as much as you think you are when you sign up, but when you do, and it makes you feel really good. But I think the mentoring and the giving back, like I said, I started in high school as a high school student and was just so impressed with that life and the camaraderie and the morale and everything that went with the fire service, a little bit of the adrenaline junkie. So when I was able to give back to high school students and make a difference in their lives and maybe they came from not so great backgrounds and I could see the change in them once they found the program and made new friends and had new purposes. I could see them turn around. And that was a big one for me. And so they would call me Mama Gina. I was like the mommy, right? So Mama Gina, they still call me to this day. And I've been retired 6 years. And some of my kids were 3 or 4 years before that. So they're on to their own careers in the fire service or in the military. And they still call me and they still follow up. And Mama Gina, I did this, or Mama Gina, I did that. And so that to me probably is the biggest, is the most impactful for me and what made me feel like, okay, I did good.
You mentioned retirement 6 years ago. Carolyn off the top mentioned that your husband, Richie, also a retired firefighter for Davie Fire Rescue. I know that you guys had all these plans, right? Like so many of us do, like meticulously laid out. This is what we're going to do as our careers are winding down, as we're inching towards retirement. Your daughter finishing college, I believe, at that time. And then something happened that most of us cannot imagine. And that was incredibly life-changing for both of you and your daughter. Can you share what happened and what you've turned that into as far as your mission?
So you're exactly right. I am a planner to the T. The day, the week, the month, the year. In 3 years, we're doing this. All came to a crashing halt. In August of 2019, Richie was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. Not sick, no issues. They found it on a regular routine blood work test for his follow-ups with his doctor. Doctor said, I think it's a glitch. You're not showing any other signs. Let's do this again. So we kind of tried to pray for the best and prepare for the worst. He went back to work. I was back at work. Doctor said, stop what you're doing right now. Drop everything. Go to the ER immediately. So we're like, what is this? I heard of leukemia, but I didn't really know much about it. Well, that was a crash course. So 37 days in the hospital, a bone marrow biopsy, and starting chemo 10 days straight to try to control this leukemia. Fast forward 10 months of more chemo, trying to get under control, finally get it under control. He's in remission, thank God. So now we can start kind of living our lives again. After 10, and to save a long story or make a long story short, like that 10 months was like hell because you're locked in your house. You have zero immune system. You're sick from the chemo. You're isolated. When I tell you we couldn't even like order food, like I had to worry about like germs coming in the house. My daughter, there was a whole decon process when she would come in the door. She had to leave everything in the garage and go straight to her room and take a shower. When I tell you like cleanliness, like 10 months of that, like not even being able to do anything. So get back into life, go back, start doing things. We start traveling. I retired when he was first diagnosed because I was already in the drop. And I was kind of like, you know what? Money's not everything. Money's not everything. I don't know how much time I have with this man. I'm going to retire. I'm going to take care of him. And I'm going to spend every day I can. Long story short, he gets better, goes back to work. Now I'm retired. COVID hits. I got way too much time on my hands. You asked my daughter because she was actually in high school at the time, the first time, and she was like, "You got to get out," because she was doing homeschool COVID, and I was in the house, so we were driving each other's nuts. So one day, I took Richie to one of his appointments, and we decided to stop by the fire station just to kind of check in and do some paperwork for disability, things like that. And there was a group there that was doing a presentation with MSA on cancer. Decon, things like that. So I ended up talking to them a little bit, and it kind of just all the stars kind of all lined up, and I ended up getting involved with this program. And so I do a lot of work in the field of firefighter cancer, which is the number one line of duty death still with firefighters is cancer, unfortunately. So I've been doing a lot of work with that in my time off. Fast forward 3 years, doing some traveling in between him still working, almost to the day the leukemia comes back. With a vengeance, way worse than the first time, needs a bone marrow transplant, was given less than 10% chance to even get to bone marrow transplant possibilities. So that was 6 months of trying to get him there. He got a really bad infection. They didn't even want to admit him to the hospital. They said he was going to die. He was going to die from the infection if the chemo didn't kill him, trying to kill off the bone marrow to get ready for transplant. I said, not today. He said, watch me. So I took care of him. I was there every day at the hospital with him. Our 19-year-old daughter, the youngest donor at Memorial West at the time, was his bone marrow donor. And it was a process for sure. But every day she saved his life, and every day she reminds him she saved his life. Happy Father's Day. Oh, don't forget I saved your life. I need a new phone. Oh, don't forget I saved your life. She reminds him. I told her it's like overdone. She can't do it anymore, but she still reminds him almost on a daily basis. So needless to say, 10% chance of not even getting to transplant to survive. It's now been 2.5 years, and he's kicking. He's off all medications. He's doing really well. We're traveling all over. We hit the road like 2 months at a time. It's been amazing. So we try to take advantage of every single day because I don't know what the future brings. I don't know what it promises. I don't know if I got 6 months. I don't know if I got a year. I don't know if I got a lifetime. So we're just living every day as much as we can. And he's at a golf tournament right now, living the dream.
Gina, what helps you stay grounded? Because that's a lot. How do you hold it all together?
My faith. I'm a very faithful, God loving person. And I pray every day. I mean, that is not the only thing we've been through by far. I mean, like, my brother was killed. My daughter was born with a rare brain tumor. Like, I've been through so many obstacles, and people kind of look at me, they're like, how do you function? How do you like walk every single day? And just like, you're a normal person. God pulls me through. And I feel like every challenge I have is a challenge that's meant to try to hold me back from a purpose of what I'm supposed to be doing in life. So I feel like I have things to do and I have people to help, and somebody out there doesn't want me to do it. So they throw these obstacles at me. So when people say, why does God hate me so much? Why do all these bad things happen to me all the time? I'm like, it's not God. It's the devil. He's trying to stop me from doing big things. And so I hold on to that. I have a great family. My daughter's amazing. My husband, my best friend, like, he pushes me and fights not for himself, for me. So I have to give back and I have to fight for him. So I will continue until I can't anymore.
You dropped that statistic, Gina, that cancer is the number one line of duty death. I don't know that people know that. I think they think of 9/11, right? Those of us of a certain age, and they're like, oh yeah, those firefighters were exposed to a bunch of stuff. It's not just those firefighters, not to take away from them, of course. Mm-hmm. It's firefighters in general. In layman's terms, can you kind of elaborate as far as why are firefighters so at risk when it comes to cancer?
It's the exposure. So when I went through fire school, the big fear was stroke and heart attack, right? Because of, for whatever reason, I would say maybe 15 years, it kind of all blurs together now. But in the last 10 to 15 years, it's come out with all these studies on cancer. And it's a multiple, right? It's the foam we use. It's the gear we wear. It's the things that are burning that we're inhaling. It's the cars, right? The metals that are burning, the products in the house that are burning. It's the fire grounds themselves, the exposure of the water and the chemicals that go in the water that have burned. So there's a multiple. It's kind of coming at us at all different angles. And so those exposures over years build up. And so we're trying, to create better practices. And we teach these, especially the younger guys, like, listen, it's not cool to have dirty gear anymore. You got to wash your gear. You have to decon on scene. I know for myself, like, I would go to a fire and it wouldn't be that big. And I'd be like, oh, it doesn't smell that bad. I'm not going to take a shower. And now knowing, like, all that was absorbing in my skin. So for me, it's not if, it's when. So, I know you lovely ladies talk a lot about mental health, and you don't necessarily think cancer and mental health, but I've seen a lot of bad things in my career. What bothers me the most mentally is worrying about cancer. Blood tests. That's my biggest fear. I could go run all kinds of calls, waiting for a test result to come back that gives me the anxiety through the roof, like not even think twice about it. So there is that mental health component of the cancer diagnosis and what you have to go through mentally as well as physically too. So trying to teach best practices and just kind of drilling it into, especially the younger kids who are invincible, right? Nothing will ever happen to me. I'll never get cancer until you get cancer. So, and it's kind of like not a dirty little secret, but like, unless it's like your crew directly, nobody really wants to talk about it. And you might say, oh, I know somebody who had cancer, but you don't know what they went through. They went through treatment, but you don't know the details. And I think that's, if you don't know how hard it is to go through it and how preventable, I mean, it's still going to happen, but there's so many things that we can do to help to reduce those numbers. I think that it would make a big difference in just, bringing the exposure rate down and trying to get these kids to do better practices on prevention.
Yeah. No, that's true. And I know that they just passed too the House bill with more safety too for first responders and firefighters. So that was great. I love that they're, the more we put it out there, the more we, have that spread awareness. I feel like things are starting to move ahead.
Yeah, it's just a constant. It just has to be We're simple. I like to say the firefighters are simple creatures. You just have to constantly like drill it into our head. And the more you repeat it, the more it sinks in. It's like that commercial when you're a kid, you see the toy commercial 500 times and you're like, oh, I want that. It's kind of the same thing. Like you have to just drill it into our brains and on repeat mode so that it'll sink in, finally be like, oh, okay, I need to do better.
That was a really nice way of saying how stubborn firefighters are.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I'm married to one. I am one, so I feel like I'm allowed to say that because it's me.
I like the effort there. I like the effort.
I'm trying to be like politically correct here.
I know that you also, right? We said you wear a lot of hats. I think it was a couple of weeks ago because you and I were trying to set this up. You were speaking about mental health, and correct me if I'm wrong, at a conference. You have so much to talk about based on your experience in this fire service, based on life experience. How have these conversations changed, Gina, in recent years?
I mean, back in the day, that was like taboo. You did not talk about mental health at all. It was like, suck it up, buttercup, put your big girl panties on. Like, there's no crying baseball. Like, you signed up for this. This is what you bid it, bro. These are all things that, like, especially as a woman, you definitely couldn't.
It had to have been another level as a woman.
I remember I went on a drowning call once, and it was a 2-year-old little girl, and my daughter was 2 at the time. And I didn't really think it would affect me, but it did. And I was completely useless on this call. I laid on the stretcher and I cried. And they're like, it's okay, baby, because we got her back, and she was crying and upset. And I froze. I couldn't do anything. Then after the fact, I got like made fun of and teased about, oh, your mom, blah, 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 blah. I have thick skin, so it didn't bother me. Now it's much easier to talk about it. And I've been in situations where it's like, just somebody will throw something out about their mental health. Like, just matter of fact, like, I had a young guy who's like, yeah, I'm thinking about killing myself. It was like, yeah, pass the butter. And I was like, well, where is this coming from? And so I think that it's much easier for these guys to come out and talk about it. And when I say guys, it's guys and girls.
Mm-hmm.
But on that guys and girls note, I noticed that out of all the women in the fire service and the guys in the fire service, it's the guys that are sharing more and are having more incidents. I don't know what the right word to use. That, like, it seems like if you look at all the firefighters in the last several years that have completed suicide, it seems like it leans more on the men's side. And I don't know where that kind of plays in. Maybe it's because they feel like they have to hide it so much, and maybe because women are more sensitive and can share. Everybody's situation is different, so it's so hard to tell. Back to the original question, yes, there's so many more opportunities, there's so many more tools, there's so many more resources, so it's so easy for somebody to reach out if they want to.
What advice would you give a new firefighter wife? That's
a new firefighter wife. I would tell them patience, understanding. I actually met my husband. We worked at Publix. We weren't even firefighters yet when I met him. So we were going to school, but we were actually working at Publix together. But I would say, strength, thick skin, and just be aware of what's going on. Like, your spouse better than anybody else. You are going to be the one that catches the little changes before even their crew, right? You're going to know that they're acting differently, and talk to them about it. Don't ignore it. Don't pretend like it's not happening. The sooner you address it, the better off everybody will be in the long run.
Jason and I were walking yesterday, and I don't even know how we got on the subject, but we talk about first alarm a lot, and what we're working on. And he said, yeah, like when you used to make me want to go to the little kids' birthday parties, like not our kids, but like their friends. And I would say no. And then you would get mad. And he had been, busting his ass at one of the busiest stations in Carol City. And I was like, yeah, I remember going to a lot of kid birthday parties, like by myself. And he's like, yeah, I used to just sit on the lawnmower when you would leave and just like mow the lawn and zone out. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, we've been talking about this, Carolyn, almost a year now. And he's just telling me the story about how he would just intentionally kind of zone out on the lawnmower. And I miss that. I mean, I thought he was just being grumpy and, didn't want to go to the kid birthday party because who likes kid birthday? Let's be real. But you're right. But paying attention to that small stuff. And I know Carolyn and I talk about this all the time. Like, admittedly, I missed a lot, and so that's why these conversations are so important. Richie, firefighter, you, firefighter, Holly, not a firefighter. Did she ever consider it, and would you have supported it?
No, she doesn't like to sweat. So no, she's actually a dental assistant. But I think I don't know if I would support it, because honestly, it's so different than when I first started. I have met women, guys as well, that like this is like their second career. They're starting older. I was on the job at 20. I retired at 42 years old. Like, and I'm beat up and feeling it, right? So like some of these people that start later, and I'm talking like mid 30s, late 30s, like I can't even imagine. Like for her, knowing how I'm physically beat up right now, from the job, I would probably try to talk her out of it. I always tell her to like marry a doctor or a lawyer and go that route. But I don't know. I mean, I would make sure she knew of what she was going to be exposed to, the dangers, the cancers, the mental health, the physical, issues. There's so many different things, and I don't regret it. I would do it again in a heartbeat, but I would do things differently for sure, knowing what I know now. I don't know. I mean, thank God she never wanted to.
Yeah.
So there was a phase where she wanted to, go to the other side and do that whole police thing, and I was like, no. So, but yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I would definitely let her know the facts for sure. But when we would hire new women, I would always take them to the side and I would give them the unofficial, speech of like, do this and expect this, and it's 2025, but things still happen, and just to kind of like get them ready, especially the young women that just come right at. I mean, like for me, for example, I worked for Publix. I worked at Publix, went to school, and went right into this career, and it was a shock to say the least. My first couple shifts, but I fell right into it, and it was, I worked really hard and proved that I belong there. And that was back when there was only a couple women. Now there's a lot more. So there's, the numbers make it easier for them now compared to then. But I don't know. I don't know if I would let her do that.
Yeah. Looking back, what are you most proud of?
Say the work I'm doing now. So I worked for a city, and I helped a lot of people, and I know that between the senior programs and the youth programs and the community service things, I know I did a lot, but I always felt like I had more to do, that maybe expanded a bigger outreach of people, not just necessarily one city. And when I fell into the Florida Firefighter Safety and Health Collaborative, that was kind of like my thing. Like, I'm like, all right, I get to help firefighters throughout the state of Florida with cancer. So I learned a lot, and just being able to help somebody in the Panhandle or in Jacksonville or in Orlando, somebody I've never met, calling me up or sending me an email looking for direction or resources. To me, that, as much as I love doing the job, I love doing this that much more, because I feel like I'm able to take what I've learned and experienced and make it easier for someone else. I don't know if that's the right word, but just like, don't reinvent the wheel. If I can help you and give you resources to make this traumatizing part of your life a little bit easier, then I did something good. So that's probably what I'm most proud of.
Gina, what would you say is the easiest thing, or the number one thing that firefighters should be prioritizing when it comes to their health? I mean, we mentioned, the decon, the washing hair, the washing the gear. I do think that's much more standard now than it was back in the day, but is there a number one thing that you would say you need to prioritize this now?
So it's funny, sleep, right? Taking care of yourself, just an overall, if you from day one, because when you come in the fire service, that's the healthiest you are. That's the best in shape you are. You worked out really hard. You're in the gym trying to get qualified to even get on the job. That's the best you're going to be. And then like your first year kind of knocks you out. I would say if you can stay from day one with your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health, whatever that might be. I also think that to stay healthy, you have to have something outside of the fire service as well, right? So another part of what I'm dealing with is a lot of retirees, right? So these guys and ladies, they retire from the fire service and they don't have anything else. They don't have anything to look forward to, or so they go into another career, or they go into this deep depression, or ultimately some of them have even, ended their lives. Like look at, Bill. I think that needs to be focused on from day one too. It's a great job, but don't let that be your entire identity. Have things outside of the fire service, family, hobbies. My husband and I are big RVers. We love to, travel the country. I'm very fortunate because I'm married to a first responder, I guess. So he understands me and I understand him. And I know that that's an added bonus for our relationship. Whereas somebody who's not necessarily a first responder, Jen, I know you grew up in it, so you know it. Carolyn, I don't know if you had any fire service experience beforehand. So I have that ability to understand him and where he comes from, and vice versa. So that helped with our relationship and our friendship. But I know a lot of the guys don't have that with their other halves. And so once they leave the fire service and they're just home 24/7, they don't have anything. And that can ultimately lead to just drinking, depression, things like that, because they don't have those outside interests, because that was not only their career, but that was their identity. And now they've lost their identity. And what do they do for this next chapter, which, might I add, is the best chapter so far? Retirement. It's been amazing. That I would say that needs to be also part of your healthy fire service career as well. So the physical, the mental, outside life, socialness, friends that are outside the fire service, and just happiness, inner happiness, right? If you're not happy, nobody around you is going to be happy. You got to find that. And if that's got to be a lot of work, then you got to put in the work. There's no cop outs in life. There's no crying in baseball. Like I said before, march on.
Yeah.
Because you have your situation and Richie's situation, was there any retirement prep, Gina? Because that's something that Carolyn and I are really advocating for the departments to check in on first responders, 10 years out. Now there's the drop for my maids, 8 years out. Okay, now you're 5 years out. Now we're 18 months out. Was there anything like that? And we're not bashing any departments when we ask this question. We're just trying to make everything better. Was there any of that? Because you guys worked for 2 different departments ahead of retirement.
Honestly, I think there should be a lot of financial education, especially for these younger kids who now have all this new, found money, and they go out and buy these big trucks and fancy toys, and they're not saving for their future. Like I had mentioned, I retired at 42, and I was able to do that because financially I was responsible from day one, and the same with my husband. So I think that should be a part of it. But for our 2 departments, no. I mean, they set you up with like a 457, or, you have the option to have that when you fill out all your paperwork when you first get on the job, but nobody checks in on you. And I know that when you retire, so when you're leading up to getting ready to retire, there's nothing there that says, okay, are you ready? You're 18 months out, or, the guys know they're 18 months out, but nobody's like checking in on them to see, okay, what is your plan? Do you have a plan? And I think that there also is a lack of follow-up after retirement, and not that they're obligated to do that, but I think that, like, I know in Palm Beach County, like, Chief Vicki Shepard, she retired from Palm Beach County, and she runs their retirement group, we'll call it. And they meet like once a month, and they do lunches, and they go on trips together, and they do they do all these amazing things. So they stay engaged always. So they got guys and girls that are like in their 80s that are still coming to these luncheons and still being part of a group. So they have it. I know a few other of the bigger departments do that as well. I think Miami-Dade did it for a while. I don't know if they still do, but like, especially the smaller ones, there's nothing to kind of keep track of your people. We just actually, my department, when we had a guy who, I guess he's been retired probably like 10 plus years or whatever, and he just passed away. Since my department has had such a high turnover, a majority of the department didn't even know who he was, right? Because there's never been any like follow up with and he lived in the city as well, but there's been no like check-ins or luncheons or anything like that. Meet the new guys, meet the older guys to set the way. Here he passes away, and some of us are like, oh my gosh, did you hear, whatever? But a lot of the younger guys are like, I don't even know who that is, kind of a thing. And he's only been gone 10 years. So all that work he put in, and what legacy did he leave? He didn't, because very few people remember who he was. So there needs to be that. There needs to be that follow-up somehow. And I don't know if that's And it's easy to do now. I don't know if that's Facebook groups. I don't know if that's, through emails or texts or, group chats or things like that. I know my department's kind of getting into that now, where we have like a group chat that everybody's talking about what they're doing and what's going on. But that's just for the retirees. There's none of the active members in there. So there needs to be that. So I think like a financial education or a well-being education, some kind of class that just kind of says, okay, here it comes, get ready. This is what you're going to have to do. And make sure you have A, B, and C lined up. And, you have all your everything's in order and ready to go, because, when that day comes and it hits you, the first probably month is like, you're in shell shock. Like, okay, what do I do now? Kind of a thing.
Yeah. It's gotta be scary and overwhelming.
Absolutely.
Well,
Go ahead. Sorry, Carolyn.
It was amazing talking to you. I mean, really, and thank you for everything you're doing too with your advocacy. And I'm so glad your husband's doing better, and you're enjoying retirement.
Yes. Best chapter yet.
I can't wait to see that RV roll out of the driveway.
Yeah.
This weekend, we're going swimming with the manatees in Crystal River.
Oh,
I've done that at Crystal River. It's fun. Get the pictures.
Absolutely.
Gina, thank you so much for joining us here on First Alarm Family First.
Thanks for having me.
We always remind everybody, if you see something, make sure to sound the alarm.
Save a life. Bye.